All right, y'all, let's dive right into the Albany 1 region. The top #1 seed, South Carolina, they're undefeated. A little bit of deja vu here because they went to last year's tournament and headed into it undefeated as well, made it all the way to the Final Four, end up facing up against Iowa. Caitlin Clark busts them open for 41 points against their great defense, and their offense also went ice cold. They were 4 for 20 from 3. So now they come back into it this season. People labeled them a rebuilding year. They had graduated a lot of talent, but somehow they seem like they've even improved, Cass. So why might this season's South Carolina team be able to pull it off and go undefeated to a championship?
Yeah, a lot of people said in the offseason that Dawn Staley was reloading. I like to say she's always loading because she lost all those starters, right? But she brings in people off the bench and she adds Tahina Pau from Oregon. That's really where this team is better. She's hitting from deep. South Carolina is only hitting about 2 more threes per game, but they're hitting about 40% versus 31% last year. That's huge for South Carolina because, as you said, like, that lost them a championship in a way. So not having Aaliyah Boston was supposed to put them back, but really Dawn Staley just corrected what happened last year, and they're ready for another title.
Absolutely. So, all right, we get it. They're good. They're undefeated. They're dominating not only on defense, but now got better on the offensive end. So, Ice, I'm going to come to you with the hard question. Who do you think is someone that could possibly beat South Carolina?
Could possibly is a very strong word there. Could possibly. I'm going to say Texas, though, which wouldn't happen until we get to the Final Four. But I just think Texas has that 94 feet of hell defense. Vic Schaefer and Dawn Staley, I miss those matchups in the SEC. It'll come back next year, but maybe we get to see it in the tournament. But I think Texas could have the depth and the defense, which is what you need this time of year to pull off big wins.
All right, well, how about within this region? You know, perhaps maybe look at Notre Dame at the #2 seed. Now, they actually started off the season playing each other in Paris.
Yep.
And look, South Carolina whooped on them. They lost by almost 30, but there's been growth since there. And to end the season, Notre Dame has won 8 straight, including 5 against ranked opponents on their way to the ACC championship. They lost Kylie Watson. So, Ice, how do they make up for the mounting adversity, the injuries, but also how much have they improved?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tremendous story. They're led, obviously, by one of the most energizing, exciting freshmen of the year in Hannah Hidalgo. But losing Kylie Watson is huge because this team only played 7 players through the majority of the season. So now they're about down to 6. So you think tournament time, having to play a couple of games to get to South Carolina, and then you're playing them with only maybe 6 or 7 with a depth roster is just tough to win. I say what I give them a fighting chance for, though, one is their high IQ. They play tremendous basketball underneath Niele Ivey. I think she's one that is just schematically one of the best in the country. Obviously, they have the ACC Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year in Hannah Hidalgo, and defense needs to travel. So I think you've got to plan around her. And then there are very good pieces around them. Maddie Wellspelt has won. So I think they're a good and built and deep team, just not sure that they'll have enough by the time they see South Carolina to upset them.
I think, what would be most exciting about that matchup is at the beginning of the season, it was Hannah Hidalgo's first game. Yeah. Everyone's going over to Paris. It's a different environment. She doesn't know what's going on. Hannah Hidalgo now leads the nation in steals. She has a whole season of experience. Like, that would be a fun matchup to see, although I agree, like, I don't know if Notre Dame will be able to get there.
Yeah, she's not a freshman anymore. She's really a sophomore at this point of the year.
Well, I also really want to highlight, it's kind of odd to call a coach an X factor, but I mean, the job that Dawn Staley has done this season for South Carolina, and Cass, you did such a nice job at the beginning of kind of highlighting her strategical dominance in a team that was labeled rebuilding and then showcasing how they were able to still be undefeated. But I'm talking more about her ability as a leader, her emotional and intellectual IQ to develop and nurture young women and honestly to be a guardian of young Black women and majority young Black women on this team and the nuances of that. I'll point out just like 2 moments that I have found really important this season that stood out. You look at that Paris game, and a moment that went viral and we all laughed about it was when they won, they were taking pictures on the court and some of the players were throwing up hand signals and we had a chuckle. Coach said, bop them on the hand and said, we don't do that here. But there was a nuance there. There was an important awareness that she wanted her team to have and young women to have. And then I'll also look at the SEC championship. Obviously, there was a scuffle between South Carolina and LSU. And I just saw coaches' readiness to handle the situation. She didn't send some player over there post-game to handle that interview and have to talk about it. She stepped up, immediately de-escalated the situation, immediately reframed the conversation. I even saw her protecting LSU's player in Flau'jae Johnson and pointing out, you know, hey, she came and spoke to me and apologized for the situation. When your coach is locked in like that, I think that trickles down certainly to a group of young women, and on a bright lights, big stage moment like the NCAA tournament, I certainly think that helps them meet the moment.
I also think, too, often we look at these great coaches and we think they're role models of young players. Dawn is a role model for other coaches. There have been tons of coaches across the country that say, we're looking up to her, we're learning from Dawn. She's experienced. So I also just think it's amazing that she's leading players and coaches to get better, and she brings others with her.
Absolutely. All right, guys, we've talked about a lot of great talent, especially all that South Carolina is bringing to the table. Who do you have coming out of this region? Do you see anyone beating South Carolina, Cass?
South Carolina is undefeated. Like, my favorite thing about them is they find the ways to win. The SEC semifinals, that championship game, the regular season game against LSU. I'm taking South Carolina.
Yeah, in Dawn, we trust. That's it. In Dawn, I trust.
Yeah, this seems like they've been doing it all season, and they'll get to the Final Four. I got South Carolina, too. Be sure to get in on the action with Yahoo's Bracket Madness game for both the women's and the men's tournaments. You could win $25,000 in our best bracket contest. It's free to play, so head to yahoo.com/tourney to sign up.